So let's talk about what that means first. So we are learning angle of elevation and depression today. So elevate. To elevate means to go up. So when you're talking elevation, angle of elevation, it is from the ground up. So the angle made by the horizontal line of the side of a person that looks upward. So it goes from the ground up. So like if this is the ground, this person's eyesight is rotating up, and this is the angle of elevation. He is here. If you want to put it on his desk, he's just in the office right now. You had to pass. You could pass that I sent him yesterday. Yes, guys. And then I was wrong, and we all know that I'm wrong a lot, so it's all good. Okay, so the angle of depression, and I hate saying this, but this is always what I think of when I say this, but depression, usually you think you're sad, and when you're sad, you hang your head a little bit, right? So depression, I always think like you're hanging your head, so it's from like your line of sight down, because you're like hanging your head. So this person's line of sight is here, and it goes downward. So it's the angle of depression. So the angle made by the horizontal line in a line of sight as a person looks downward. So this is line of sight down. What?
Like this? Kind of hanging your head?
Stop that. That's terrible.
But they're both the same time.
What do you mean? Okay, so if you have, so here's your situations. So like if I'm a person, or if I'm like right here, this is the ground, okay? And I look up, that is angle of elevation because it's looking up, okay? But if you're like standing on top of a cliff and you're right here, the line of sight, okay, stop. The angle of depression, you're standing right here, the sight is straight across, right? And you go downwards, that is angle of depression. Does that make a little bit more sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody understand that? It's always from a horizontal line up or a horizontal line down. Make sure you're always starting with that horizontal line.
Miss Brady.
So let's talk about this.
Do we have to turn lines on the feet?
In the next problem, yes. I did the problem wrong when I first was doing it. I was like, wait, oh, okay. Okay, so let's get through these word problems. We have 25 minutes. Then I need to get through them all with you so you understand what you're doing for your test, which is the no-calc part is next Thursday, and the calc part is Friday. The calc part is Friday. So we need to get through this stuff over everything that you've learned. Okay, so a lifeguard is watching a beach from a line of sight 6 feet above the ground. Did I skip one? The crossbar of a goalpost is 10 feet tall. If a field goal is being attempted 25 yards from the base of the goalpost, what is the smallest angle of depression at which the ball could have been kicked if it clears the goalpost by 1 foot? So Ian already noticed this. Do you guys notice that we have yards and feet? Can we be using 2 different units? So how many yards are in a foot?
3.
How many feet are in a yard, I should say? So there's 3 feet per. So what do we have to do with that 25 then? Multiply it by 3, so 25 times 3 is, so we know that this is actually 75 feet. So now we're all in feet. So the goalpost itself is 10 feet, but he clears it by 1. So that is a total of how many feet? So this is 11 feet because he's clearing the goalpost. You'll then notice that we had to change this. So the football is over here, and he kicks it from 25 yards or 75 feet away from the goal. Does that make sense? So This is going to be an angle of elevation because the ball is going to go from the ground upwards, right? So we need to find the angle of elevation, so the ground up of this ball here. What is the angle it's being kicked at? So we have something on the opposite side. This is a right angle here. This is the hypotenuse, and this is the adjacent. So which trig function in SOHCAHTOA could we use here? Somebody said TOA, right? Why are we using TOA? You know an opposite and an adjacent, right? We don't know a hypotenuse, so we can't use the other two. So we do tangent of the angle. Our angle is theta. You could call it x if you hate theta. Equals opposite. What is opposite? Is it 10? Is it 1? Is it 11? What is it? It has to be the 11, right? Because it's that whole entire height of the ball over the adjacent, which is, okay, you are finding an angle. So do we use sine? Do we use regular tangent, or do we have to use the inverse? Inverse. So we're going to do inverse tangent of the ratio to get our angle. And tell me what you get. What did you guys get when you did the inverse tangent? So let's do a 1 decimal place. So theta is 8.3 degrees. So he kicks the ball at an angle of 8.3 degrees. What are you going to say?
I was going to ask if you had to have decimals, but no matter what, you're going to have decimals.
Yeah. Just round to 1 decimal place and I'm fine with that. Questions on that first one? Okay, now we're actually on this one. I really just like this image here. It's like, I didn't put this image here, but it's like one of my favorite things I've seen in my life here. Like, look at him. He's swimming and like...
He looks like he's like trying to drink the water.
It looks more like, I feel like maybe is he supposed to be drowning? Like, yeah.
Okay, wait, what is the person up there, like the lifeguard?
This is a lifeguard, but I don't know. It doesn't say anything about this person drowning. So like, this could be a small child drinking the water. Like, I have to yell at my daughter for drinking bath water all the time. It's disgusting. So, I mean...
Why does the lifeguard have a body, though?
I don't know. Maybe it's hiding. Maybe it's like the seat has like a little like wall and like it's right here.
That's safe when the water's this way.
No, because there's like an opening up front is what I'm saying. So like it's just a protection.
Whoever made this needs to...
I don't know. I really like this image, so I'm gonna keep it here. So a lifeguard is watching a beach from a line of sight of 6 feet above the ground. She sees a swimmer at an angle of depression of 8 degrees. How far away from the tower is the swimmer?
So we're basically using the head as data?
Your head is your line of sight. So you need to draw a horizontal line from the person's eyes. So it's a horizontal line from the person's eyes. So the angle of depression is from the from the line of sight down, and we know that is 8 degrees. So understanding that line of sight down. So whenever you see angle of depression, somebody's usually above something. Draw their line of sight straight forward, and then go down. So it says, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so that's like the angle of it.
Yeah, but you're going to have to draw some images, too. So we'll talk more about it as we're drawing images, too. So a lifeguard is watching from a beach from a line of sight of 6 feet above the ground. So they're 6 feet above the ground. So this is 6 feet. She sees a swimmer at an angle of depression of 8 degrees. How far away from the tower? So the tower is here, right? So think of these as 2 points. The tower to the swimmer. So the tower to the swimmer means we're finding this length. If it had said from the lifeguard to the swimmer, do you see how we would have been finding the hypotenuse? But use those as 2 points. So it's the tower to the swimmer. Those are your 2 points. So we are finding this length here. So we have to talk about a few things here. First of all, you are making a rectangle. So do you see that this rectangle is being formed here? So if this is 6 feet, then this is
6 feet.
So this is also 6 feet, which might be different than how Miss Steppen teaches it, just so you know. So if you get confused, you can go either or. It doesn't matter which way you want to do it. Because there's 2 ways to look at this, okay? So if this is x, this is x. Right? Because opposite sides of a rectangle. So do you see that we're focusing on this upper triangle here? You see that triangle? Okay. So I know my angle that I'm referencing is angle 8. This is opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. So which trig function in SOHCAHTOA do we need to use? What did you say, Hunter? TOA, because we know the opposite and the adjacent. We don't know a hypotenuse. We don't know all of them, but that's what we're trying to find, I should say. So we have tangent of 8 degrees. Tangent of the angle is 6 over x. Are we using the inverse in this one? Do we use the inverse in this one? Where is the... Why am I...
On the side, I'll turn it
There you go. Got it. So, what do we do first in this one here, Helena?
over. Trying to text you.
You multiply both sides by x.
Greg, then what do I have to do?
Divide 6 and tan 8.
So what's 6 divided by tan 8?
42.67.
And it's in feet. So the swimmer is 42.7 feet away from the tower. They're really far in the ocean.
So if this would drive it too bad.
I mean, if you're 6 feet, like most, around most men are around 6 feet, that's 7 people laid across, so it's really not that far. I always think of people, I don't know why that's how I think of it, but that's how I...
Meters down.
Okay, before we move on here, do we have questions about this angle of elevation and depression thing? Because depression's a little different, because that's not the triangle that was originally drawn there. So do you understand how we drew this upper triangle and made a rectangle out of it?
Yeah.
All right. If you don't, please ask questions. Okay, we're at a circus. At the circus, a person in the audience at ground level watches a high wire routine. A 5'6" acrobat is standing on a 25-foot platform off the ground. I can't speak. How far is the audience member from the acrobat on top of the platform if the angle of elevation from the audience member's line of sight to the top of the acrobat's head is 27 degrees? Okay, so first of all, it's angle of elevation, and we're talking about the angle of elevation, the line of sight from this audience member here. Do you see the audience member here? So this is the ground. Do you see that? And elevation means ground up, and we know it's 27 degrees. Do you guys see that? Everybody see that? Okay, we know that this part here, the platform, is 25 feet. Do you guys see that? But he is 5.5 feet. Why did I say 5.5 feet? Why didn't I say 5 feet 6 inches?
Because it's half of...
6 over 12 is 1/2. Can we have feet and inches together? If I was going to do this problem, could I do 5 feet 6 inches in this problem? No, that's why I have to do 5.5. So this is 5.5 feet, which means this is a total height of what? 30.5 feet. And we need to find the distance from the audience member to the acrobat. The audience member is the first point. Do you guys see that? The acropoid is the second point. The acrobat is the second point, which means that we're actually finding the hypotenuse this time. So we have the hypotenuse. This is the opposite. And this is the adjacent. So which trig function are we using in SOHCAHTOA? Which trig function are we using? Sine, yes. We have the opposite in the hypotenuse, which means we have to use the sine. So I use the sine of the angle, which is 27 degrees, is opposite. Which one of these numbers are we using for the opposite? The whole entire height over x. So Olivia, what do I have to do first? We are not using the inverse. We are finding a side, so thank you for saying what you said. Emma, then what? So what is 30.5 divided by sine of 27? What'd you say? So the audience member is 67.2 feet away from the acrobat. Yay, we get to draw pictures now. Are you excited? No more pictures are drawn for you. You get to draw your own.
Let's go.
Two more, right? Okay. So, Maria is at the top of a cliff and sees a seal in the water. So, we have a cliff here. And Maria is up here. This is a seal. That's a seal. That's my seal. I think they have like the little flipper taily thing, right? But I thought like if I did that, it would look more like a fish. But whatever.
No, I don't feel like they do. I feel like
They do. They have the little flipper ones, and then they have the little hands on the side.
Still looks like a movie.
Yeah.
It looks like
Because you get to see that. Okay, so if the seal is 65 feet away from Maria, so do you see how it's from the seal to Maria? The seal to Maria, right? So we are looking this way. This is 65 feet from the seal to Maria. And the angle of depression is 52 degrees, which means we're looking at Maria is line of sight. You always draw that horizontal in, down.
Why do we draw that?
The horizontal, either from the ground or from the ground up.
Oh, so we can make a rectangle.
Yes. And so you know where the angle of depression is, because it always has to come from a horizontal. Angle of elevation and angle of depression always have to come from the horizontal. So elevation usually comes from the ground, horizontal. For angle of depression, it comes from an eyesight, like that's like taller up, like a cliff or something like that, and down. So that's why. And so this is 52 degrees. And we want to know what is the horizontal distance from the seal to the cliff. So we want to know, if this is our cliff here, what is that distance there? So where else can we label X? Where else can we label X then if the bottom is X? That top. So we know opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. So if I do SOHCAHTOA, which part of SOHCAHTOA do I have to use? Did you just say ka? Okay, yes. So we have to use the cosine of the angle. So cosine of 52 is adjacent over hypotenuse. So Desiree, what do I have to do to solve that? And we don't have to divide this time, so we just have to do 65 times the cosine of 52, and we get x is...
Learn how to read, kid.
What'd you get?
40.0.
Just 40? So, the seal is 40 feet from the bottom of the cliff. You should see the seal on Greg's sheet right now. It's even talking. It has a word bubble.
Yeah, it says I'm going to eat you.
How big is it?
Very
Pretty
big.
big.
Wait, do seals eat? No, I don't think seals eat.
No, seals are really mean. I think they are.
No, I don't think they eat
Seals
them,
eat
though.
penguins.
I've seen.
Yeah, they do. They eat penguins. They're mean animals. They're not like vegetarians.
They're not sea lions.
Well, what if they
These are
thought you were a
seals.
penguin and they ate
No,
you?
they're
That's sea
really
lions.
No, they don't live there. They don't live there.
Eels. Kill them.
You know how sharks mistake like surfers for like seals and stuff because the bottom of the board looks like a seal? It's like that same concept. If you're like waddling around, maybe it thinks you're a seal.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how it works.
All right, one more problem. Olivia, you're part of our problem here. Olivia's in a lighthouse, guys. Olivia is at a lighthouse on a 75-meter cliff. You might want to draw underneath this slide. This is going to be a lot of drawing here.
Oh my god, I have a cute little window in it. Oh, nice. It does. Do people live in lighthouses?
I don't know.
I don't think you can. Can you live in a lighthouse?
I think you...
I mean, there's movies where people do, but
Yeah, that's what my... I don't know.
it looks like an elevator.
She observes 2 sailboats due east.
That looks like a tree.
2 sailboats due east of the lighthouse. The angle of depressions to the 2 sailboats are 33 degrees and 57 degrees. Find the distance between the 2 sailboats. So,
So we don't even have to draw.
yes, we do. The problem here is that there's 2 of them. So, again, you have the angle of depression is the horizontal line of sight down. Do you guys see both of these here? How there's 2? Is that confusing? So I'm going to split this diagram up here. I'm going to do one sailboat and the other sailboat, but I'm going to keep the bigger one as well.
Is this like you said normal? Or is this going to be like on a homework?
There will probably be one like this on the homework. I mean, I'll talk to you guys in a second. So I'm redrawing it so that we have basically two problems here. So this is 75 feet, the lighthouse, horizontal line down to the 2 different sailboats. Do you see how I have 2 different sailboats here?
Yeah.
So I redrew the picture so it's not as confusing. Do you see otherwise there's a lot of overlap going on? So one of the angles of depression is 33 degrees. And the other angle of depression is 57 degrees. And we need to know what is the distance between the 2 boats. So we need to find this distance here. So we need to know, first of all, the distance from the ground. So both of these are, I'm going to call one X and one Y. So this is Y, and this is 75. And this is X, and this is 75. I'm going to put this as a number here. So this is number 1, and this is number 2. Do you use sine, cosine, or tangent to find X and Y? It's going to be the same trig function for both. It's just different angle measure. Sine, cosine, or tangent? Opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. So we're using the tangent. So 1, we do tangent of 33 is equal to 75 over y. And 2 is tangent of 57 is 75 over x. So we multiply by y on both sides. And divide by the tangent of 33. So what's 75 divided by the tangent of 33? 115.5? Okay, so then we do the same thing here. We multiply by x on both sides. And divide by the tangent of 57 this time. So do 75 divided by the tangent of 57 this time. $48.7. Okay, different color here. So from here to here is 48.7, you said, right? Did I say that right? So 48.7. And from here to this one is 115.5. What are we going to have to do with those two numbers to figure out this distance here? Subtract it. So we're going to do 115.5 minus 48.7, and what do you guys get? 66.8. Did somebody else get 66.8?
Why did you subtract it?
Okay. Because it asks you to find the distance between the two sailboats. So we know that this distance from here to this one is 48, and this one's 115. So if we subtract those, it will get us our distance. So the two boats are 66.8 feet apart. It's only second hour.